After getting pregnant by accident, I dragged my suitcase to the door, ready to run. The moment I opened it, a stream of text floated before my eyes. Why are you running? If you run, you're dead. Raven Smith has no brain. She's carrying the only bloodline of the Morrison family and she dares to hide. After the male lead Matthias Morrison's car accident, his fertility was damaged. The child in Raven's belly is the Morrison family's only heir. Once Raven runs, the child will be taken by Juliet White. Juliet will marry into the Morrison family with a ready-made kid and rise to power through her son. I froze mid-step. Half a minute later, I kicked my suitcase back into the walk-in closet. Clutching the pregnancy test, I stormed into the top floor of Morrison Corporation. Matthias Morrison was in a meeting. I pushed open the conference room doors and slammed the report in front of him. Matthias Morrison, I'm pregnant. It's yours. The conference room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Dozens of eyes turned to stare at me. Matthias sat at the head of the table, his black shirt buttoned all the way to the top, his eyes cold and indifferent. 3 years ago, a car accident nearly took his life. After he survived, the Morrison family's private hospital issued a diagnosis. Matthias Morrison would have extreme difficulty having children. The Morrison family had been passing down a single heir for 13 generations. The old matriarch of the family, Lillian Morrison, was so anxious she consulted every renowned doctor. She even secretly arranged blind dates for him, but he coldly sent them all away. So when I threw out this pregnancy test, the faces of the executives in the room were even more spectacular than mine had been when I first saw those floating words. Matthias picked up the report and looked at it for 2 seconds. Miss Raven, please leave. I choked. You don't believe me? He looked up at me, his gaze utterly devoid of warmth. What do you want? That sentence hurt more than a slap to the face. I, Raven Smith, the pampered youngest daughter of the Smith family, had been spoiled and arrogant since childhood. I'd certainly done plenty of outrageous things, like chasing after Grayson Jones for 10 years, like getting drugged at a party and trying to make Grayson jealous, accidentally pushing myself onto Matthias Morrison instead. And then, after waking up, crying and cursing him for taking advantage of me. Matthias never explained. He just draped his coat over me and had his driver take me home. Half a month later, I found out I was pregnant. My first reaction was to run. After all, if my parents saw this report, they'd tear apart both the baby's father and me. But the floating text said if I ran, I would die. The child would be taken by Juliet White. Juliet White was the original novel's female lead. Pure and resilient, gentle and kind. She would become the apple of Matthias Morrison's eye. And I was just cannon fodder paving the way for them. More text floated by. Raven, cry now. Cry hard. Matthias responds to softness, not force. Don't back down. She's the only one who's ever gotten pregnant with Matthias Morrison's child. Juliet has already been earning favor with Lillian. Wait any longer and you'll lose both the husband and the child. I pinched my palm, my eyes reddening. Matthias Morrison, you sleep with me and then deny it? Someone in the conference room sucked in a sharp breath. Matthias's eyes flickered slightly, as if suppressing something. I walked around the table to his side, and pressed his hand against my lower abdomen. You don't have to believe me, but you need to take care of me first. Matthias's fingers stiffened. I looked at him, my heart pounding painfully. His gaze lingered on my face for a long time. Meeting dismissed. Everyone immediately lowered their heads and filed out. The door closed. He withdrew his hand and pulled out his phone to dial an internal line. Send the head of obstetrics and gynecology up here. I had just started to relax. The conference room door suddenly opened again. A woman in a white dress stood in the doorway, holding a food container. Matthias, did I come at a bad time? The floating text exploded instantly. Juliet White is here. Juliet White looked very wholesome. White dress, black hair, soft eyes. Standing next to someone as cold as Matthias Morrison, she really did seem like a ray of light. She saw the pregnancy test in my hand, and her eyelashes trembled. Miss Raven, are you feeling unwell? I hid the pregnancy test behind my back, my tone stubborn. What's it to you? Juliet's face paled. I'm just concerned. Matthias asked her. Who let you come up here? Juliet bit her lip lightly. Lillian asked me to bring you soup. The doctor said your stomach hasn't been well lately. Matthias's expression grew even colder. Put it down and leave. Matthias, Lillian also said she wants you to come back to the old mansion tonight. The text scrolled rapidly. Here it comes. Lillian is going to set up Juliet and Matthias. Juliet saved Lillian's life. Lillian loves her now. If Raven acts up even a little, Matthias will find her annoying. I immediately moved closer to Matthias. You can't go tonight. Matthias looked down at me. You think you can control me? I tilted my face up. I'm carrying your child. Of course I can control you. Juliet's face grew even paler. Matthias looked at me, his expression calm, as if examining a contract full of loopholes. Raven Smith, You'd better understand the consequences of lying to me. I was afraid of him, but I was more afraid of dying. I straightened my back, trying to appear righteous. Then check now. 10 minutes later, the head of obstetrics and gynecology, Dr. Riley, arrived at the CEO's lounge with equipment and nurses. Blood draw, urine test, ultrasound. I lay on the bed, my skirt covering my lower abdomen, my palms covered in sweat. Matthias stood by the window, his back straight. Juliet didn't leave. She stood outside the door, looking in through the half-open entrance. The examination ended. Dr. Riley held the test results, her expression very complicated. Mr. Morrison, Miss Raven is indeed pregnant. Matthias froze. Dr. Riley continued. Based on the gestational age, the timing also matches up. I immediately sat up. Did you hear that? But Matthias kept staring at Dr. Riley. Can the father be confirmed? Dr. Riley looked uncomfortable under his gaze. Invasive testing isn't recommended in early pregnancy, but non-invasive prenatal paternity testing can be arranged later. The smile on my face stiffened. Matthias Morrison, you still doubt me? He said nothing. Juliet suddenly walked in, her voice as gentle as water. Miss Raven, don't be angry. Matthias's physical condition is special. It's normal for him to be cautious. I grabbed a pillow and threw it at her. Who the hell do you think you are? Juliet stumbled back half a step, her eyes instantly reddening. Matthias frowned. My heart ached. I immediately threw off the blanket and got out of bed. Fine, I'm leaving. My foot had just touched the floor when my lower abdomen suddenly cramped. I bent over in pain. Matthias stepped forward in one stride, scooping me up, his voice urgent. Doctor. I gripped his collar, tears rolling down uncontrollably. Don't touch me. Matthias's body stiffened. The next second, the sound of a cane tapping on the floor came from outside. Lillian had arrived. As soon as she entered, her eyes went straight to my belly. Who's pregnant with my Morrison family's child? Lillian was in her 70s, with a full head of silver hair and a very straight spine. Matthias was holding me. I wanted to get down. He tightened his arms. Don't move. Lillian walked quickly to the bedside. How many weeks? Dr. Riley immediately answered. Around 6 weeks. Lillian's hands trembled. Really pregnant? Dr. Riley nodded. Lillian's eyes suddenly reddened. Juliet supported her, saying softly, Lillian, don't get excited yet. The child's paternity still needs to be confirmed. The joy on Lillian's face froze. She looked at Matthias. Matthias placed me back on the bed and pulled a thin blanket over my legs. It's early pregnancy. Risky tests can't be done. My heart gave a small jolt. The man who had just doubted me was now protecting me. Lillian frowned. Matthias, this concerns the Morrison family bloodline. Matthias's voice was cold and low. Her body concerns a human life. The room fell silent. The text drifted slowly by. Matthias is protecting her now. Juliet is panicking. In the original novel, Lillian trained Juliet as her grandson's wife. Now Raven has barged in pregnant. Raven, don't get cocky. The Morrison family branch members are about to fight for inheritance rights. Lillian sat down beside my bed and held my hand. Raven, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to live? The old mansion has dedicated nutritionists and doctors. I was about to say whatever, but Juliet spoke first. The old mansion is quiet, suitable for pregnancy. I can keep Miss Raven company. I actually studied nursing. I sneered. You keep me company? Juliet nodded. I'm afraid you won't be comfortable alone. I looked at Matthias. I'm not going to the old mansion. Lillian's expression soured. She asked why. My eyes reddened, my voice immediately softening. I'm scared. Scared of what? I pointed at Juliet. Scared of her. Juliet's face stiffened. Lillian was also stunned. I lowered my head and touched my lower abdomen. As soon as she came in, she talked about confirming the child's paternity. Then she wanted me to go to the old mansion. What if I fall asleep and something happens to the baby? Juliet hurriedly explained. Miss Raven, you've misunderstood me. I shrank into Matthias's embrace. See, she's glaring at me again. Juliet. Matthias looked down at me, a hint of amusement seeming to flash in his eyes before he quickly suppressed it. Lillian looked at Juliet, her expression cooling somewhat. Juliet, you should go back first. Juliet's lips turned pale. Lillian, go back. Juliet left carrying the food container. As soon as the door closed, Lillian immediately changed her expression, gripping my hand. Raven, you can live wherever you want. I looked at Matthias. I want to live at his place. Matthias's brow furrowed slightly. Lillian immediately nodded. Fine, live at his place. Matthias said coldly. I didn't agree. Lillian tapped her cane heavily. You shut up. I almost laughed out loud. Text floated by. Step 1 of rising to power through her son. Success. Too bad the Smith family hasn't made their move yet. The next second, my phone rang. My mom's name appeared on the screen. I didn't dare answer. Matthias glanced at me. Afraid of your family? I spoke stubbornly. Who's afraid? The phone stopped for 2 seconds, then rang again. This time it was my dad. If I didn't answer, the Smith family would storm straight to Morrison Corporation. I took a deep breath and pressed answer. My mom's voice was shrill and terrifying. Raven Smith, where are you? I glanced at Matthias. Shopping. Shopping all the way up to the Morrison Corporation top floor? My scalp tingled. Did Gresham Jones snitch? Sure enough, my mom's next words confirmed it. Grayson said you went to find Matthias Morrison with a pregnancy test. I held the phone away from my ear. She continued yelling, You're pregnant? Lillian's ears were sharper than anyone's. She immediately leaned in. I closed my eyes. Yes. Silence on the other end of the line for 3 seconds. My mom started crying. Have you lost your mind? How old are you? What's going on between you and Matthias Morrison? Before I could speak, Matthias took the phone. Mrs. Smith, I will take responsibility. My mom on the other end went quiet. Then my dad's voice came through. Matthias Morrison, let Raven come home. Matthias looked at me. I immediately shook my head. He said into the phone, She's not in a condition to travel right now. My dad laughed coldly. You have no right to keep my daughter. Matthias's expression was indifferent. If she wants to leave, I won't stop her. I immediately grabbed his sleeve. I'm not leaving. The sound of a glass shattering came from the other end. My mom's voice shook with anger. Raven Smith, you just wait. The call ended. I buried my face in the blanket. I was done for. Lillian patted my hand. Don't be afraid. The Morrison family will protect you. I looked at her wearily. You wanted me to go to the old mansion and verify the child just a moment ago. Lillian was rendered speechless. Matthias cleared his throat lightly. Come back to my place first. I knew he lived in a luxury home, but when the car drove into the exclusive villa district, I couldn't help but gasp. My mood improved instantly. Matthias Morrison, your place is actually pretty suitable for pregnancy. He loosened his tie. The master bedroom is yours. I sat on the sofa holding a cushion. Where will you sleep? Guest room. I frowned. If you're too far away, what do I do if I get hungry in the middle of the night? Matthias looked at me. Where do you want me to sleep? I pointed at the master bedroom's king-size bed. The bed is very big. His eyes darkened. Ravensmith, don't provoke me. I immediately shut my mouth. That night, I woke up hungry and padded barefoot to the kitchen looking for food. The refrigerator was full of premium ingredients. I didn't know how to cook any of them. I dug out a box of strawberries and had just bitten into one when Matthias's voice came from behind me. Why aren't you wearing shoes? I was so startled the strawberry fell to the floor. He walked over, lifted me onto the kitchen island, and knelt down to wipe my feet. His movements were very gentle. I looked at his lowered brows and eyes, my heartbeat going out of control for a moment. Text suddenly appeared. Friendly reminder, Grayson Jones is downstairs. He brought the Smith family with him. The doorbell rang. The marble of the kitchen island was cold against my thighs, but Matthias's hand, on my bare ankle, was remarkably warm. He didn't let go when the heavy, low-frequency hum of the video doorbell echoed through the silent villa. The glowing blue text flickered directly above his head, its font turning a dangerous, warning crimson. Grayson Jones is trying to use your pregnancy to force the Smith family to break their business ties with the Morrisons. He told your father that Matthias drugged you. If you don't act like a hysterical, victimized woman right now, your dad will take you back by force, and Juliet will have the perfect chance to comfort a betrayed Matthias tomorrow. I swallowed the half-eaten strawberry, my heart giving a violent thud against my ribs. Matthias reached for a pair of soft house slippers from the cabinet under the island, gently sliding them onto my feet before standing up. He looked up at me, his dark eyes steady, evaluating the sudden tension in my shoulders. Stay here, he said, his voice dropping into that quiet, commanding register. I'll handle them. No, I said, grabbing his sleeve before he could turn. My eyes were already beginning to redden. A trick I had perfected after years of chasing Grayson. If you go alone, my dad will think you're keeping me prisoner. Let me go with you. Matthias looked at my fingers clutching his cuff, then down at the pink slippers on my feet. Without a word, he reached out, his hands wrapping around my waist, as he effortlessly lifted me off the high island, setting me onto the floor. Keep behind me, he murmured. When we reached the foyer, the door was already being unlocked from the outside. My father, being the head of the Smith Group, had brought his personal security team, who had bypassed the estate's outer gate with the brute force authority of a family whose youngest daughter had been kidnapped. The heavy oak door swung open with a sharp whoosh. My father, Richard Smith, strode in first, his face completely dark with a raw, protective fury. Beside him was my mother, her fingers clutching her designer handbag so tightly the leather creaked. And standing just behind them, wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit with a smug, self-righteous expression, was Grayson Jones. "Raven!" my mother cried, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. When she saw me, standing in Matthias's silk house robe, her face turned an ashen, horrified. "Gray, you're really here? What did this monster do to you?" "Richard, get her," Grayson said, stepping forward, his hand reaching out to grab my wrist with an annoying proprietary confidence. "I told you Matthias took advantage of her vulnerability at the party. He's using the child to lock the Smith family shares." The blue text flashed instantly in front of Grayson's face. "Grayson's family company is currently facing bankruptcy. He wants to marry you, to get your father's inheritance, but he needs to destroy Matthias first to clear his path. Tell him to get lost, Raven. Use your nails." Before Grayson's fingers could touch my skin, Matthias stepped forward. His movement was so fast, so precise, that it looked like a dark blur. He grabbed Grayson's wrist midair, his grip tightening with a slow, crushing force that made the younger man's face instantly distorted in pain. "Mr. Jones," Matthias said, his voice remarkably calm, yet carrying a cold, heavy edge that made the security guards behind my father freeze. "You are currently trespassing on my private property. If your hand goes any closer to my fiancé, I will ensure the Jones Group's liquidation process is moved up to tomorrow morning." "Mateo," my father growled, stepping between them. "Let go of him, and let go of my daughter." I didn't wait. I stepped out from behind Matthias's shoulder, threw my arms around his waist, and buried my face against his chest, let out a loud, dramatic sob. "Dad, don't hit him," I cried, my voice cracking with a perfect, watery terror. It wasn't his fault. I was the one who pushed him at the party. I love him. If you take me away, I'll jump out of the car." The foyer fell into a dead, suffocating silence. My mother's jaw dropped. My father stared at me as if I had suddenly grown a second head. Grayson, still clutching his bruised wrist, looked at me with a mixture of shock and deep, toxic humiliation. "Raven, what are you saying? You've been chasing me for 10 years. You said you'd never look at another man. You ignored me for 10 years, Grayson." I shrieked, peek out from Matthias's test to glare at him. "You only look at me when you want my father's investment. Matthias is twice the man you are, and he actually took care of my feet tonight. Get out of our house." The dining room of the villa was quiet, the only sound the clinking of porcelain cups as my mother drank her third cup of chamomile tea to calm her nerves. My father sat across from Matthias, his hands resting on the dark walnut table, his eyes locked onto the younger man with the heavy, evaluating gaze of a veteran businessman. I sat beside Matthias, my hand tucked firmly under his thigh so he couldn't move away from me. 6 weeks, my father said, his voice flat. "The Morrison family has been passing down a single heir for 13 generations, Matthias. If this child is indeed yours, Lillian will want to take her back to the old mansion. We all know how she handles outsiders." "Lillian has already agreed to let Raven stay here," Matthias said, his expression completely cool, his hand resting on the table, fingers tapping with a slow rhythmic cadence. "And as for the Morrison family, I have already instructed my legal team to draft the marriage registration. We will register on Monday." "Monday?" my mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "But the wedding, the social circle, what will they say if the Smith family's daughter marries without a proper ceremony?" "The ceremony will be held in the spring," Matthias said, "but the registration must be completed now to secure her legal status." And he slid a heavy, dark blue folder across the walnut table. "This is the premarital asset agreement. I am transferring 30% of my personal shares in Morrison Corporation, along with the title deeds to the Riverfront estate and the Swiss accounts, to Raven's name as a betrothal gift. The transfer will be finalized the moment the marriage certificate is signed." My father's fingers tightened on his teacup. 30% of Morrison Corporation was worth nearly $6 billion. It was more than the entire net worth of the Smith Group. By doing this, Matthias wasn't just taking responsibility, he was placing his entire financial life into my hands. The blue text drifted gently by. "Step 2 of rising to power complete. Richard is satisfied. He won't try to take you back now. But be careful. Julia has just arrived at the old mansion. With a bottle of prenatal soup she prepared herself." My father closed the blue folder, his shoulders slowly relaxing. He looked at Matthias, then at me, a faint, complicated sigh escaping his throat. "You've grown up, Raven," he said softly. "You used to be so foolish, but it seems you've finally found a man who knows how to protect you." "I told you, Dad," I said, leaning my head against Matthias's shoulder, my voice sweet and sticky. "He's the best." Matthias cleared his throat lightly, his body slightly stiffening under my touch, but he didn't pull away. On Sunday afternoon, the old mansion of the Morrison family was quiet, the smell of damp pine needles and expensive incense filling the grand, high-ceilinged corridors. I sat on the plush sofa in the sunroom, wrapped in a soft cashmere shawl. Across from me sat Lillian, her silver hair styled in a neat bun, her hands holding a blue porcelain cup. Beside her stood Juliet, her face perfectly pale and sweet in a white linen dress, her fingers busy pouring a dark, steaming liquid from a silver thermos. "Lillian," Juliet said, her voice as soft as water as she handed the cup to me. "This is the orchid root soup the herbalist recommended. It's very good for stabilizing the wound during the first trimester. I spent 4 hours brewing it myself." The blue text exploded in front of my eyes, the letters flashing a violent, toxic purple. "Don't drink it. The soup contains a high concentration of safflower extract, hidden under the smell of the orchid root. It will trigger a severe uterine contraction within 10 minutes. Juliet wants you to miscarry today, so she can claim you lied about the pregnancy to force the marriage." My fingers froze on the warm porcelain of the cup. Juliet looked at me, her eyes filled with a gentle, patient concern that looked entirely genuine. "Miss Raven, is it too hot? I can cool it for you." "No," I said, setting the cup down on the glass table with a sharp clack. "I don't like the smell. It makes me nauseous." Lillian's brow furrowed slightly. "Raven, Juliet spent all morning preparing this for you. It's for the baby's health. Don't be so stubborn." "Lillian," Juliet whispered, her eyes instantly reddening as she stepped back, looking terribly hurt. "It's okay. I know Miss Raven doesn't like me. I didn't mean to upset her. I'll just take it away." She reached for the cup, her fingers touching the handle. "Wait," a cold, low voice commanded from the doorway. Matthias walked into the sunroom, his black coat open, bringing the chill of the late autumn wind with him. He didn't look at Juliet. His eyes went straight to my face, scanning my expression for any sign of distress. "Matthias," Lillian said, her tone slightly displeased. "You're late. We were just trying to get Raven to drink some herbal soup." "The doctor said she cannot take any unverified herbal mixtures," Matthias said, walking over to my side. He didn't sit. He stood behind my shoulder, his hand resting on the fabric of my shawl. "Simon." His assistant Simon walked into the room, carrying a clean glass bottle and a sterile medical box. "Take the cup, Simon," Matthias said, his voice flat. "Send it to the state toxicology lab. I want a full chemical analysis of the ingredients." Juliet's face went from pale to a terrifying, translucent white. Her fingers slipped from the silver thermos, which fell onto the Persian rug with a dull, heavy clatter, the dark liquid soaking into the wool like blood. "Matthias," she whispered, her voice shaking violently. "You don't trust me? I saved Lillian's life. Why would I?" "I don't trust anyone who stands too close to my wife," Matthias said, his voice dropping into that freezing, quiet register. "Simon, secure the thermos. If there is any flafflower or abortifacient found in the liquid, call the police directly." "Lillian." Juliet fell to her knees on the rug, grabbing the old matriarch's hand. "Lillian, save me. He's framing me. He wants to throw me out because of Raven." Lillian looked at the dark stain on the rug, then at Juliet's sweating, panicked face. The old woman had been in the high society world for 50 years. She had seen every type of corporate climber and domestic poisoner. The warmth in her eyes slowly cooled, replaced by a cold, hard distance. "Juliet," Lillian said quietly, "if you are innocent, the lab report will prove it. But until then, you will stay in the West Wing. Do not leave your room." The Morrison Autumn Gala was held at the Grand Plaza Hotel, the entire venue bathed in a sea of gold light, crystal chandeliers, and white roses. It was the first time Matthias brought me to a public event since our marriage registration. I wore a dark blue velvet gown that draped my belly perfectly, my hair styled in soft, elegant waves. The 30% share transfer had been finalized that morning, and as I walked into the ballroom on Matthias's arm, the executives and branch family members of the Morrison Group stood up, their bows deep and respectful. Lillian sat at the head table, her silver cane resting against her knee. But as we approached the VIP section, the blue text flashed again, the letters spinning in a rapid, yellow circle. "Grayson Jones and the Morrison branch family leader, Gerald Morrison, are currently in the security room. They have bribed the technical staff to play the video of your old party night on the main screen during Matthias's speech. They want to show everyone that you tricked Matthias by drugging him, to throw out your marriage registration on the grounds of fraud." I smiled, my hand tightening on Matthias's arm. "Matthias," I whispered, leaning close to his ear, "do you have the security overwrite code for the main screen?" Matthias paused, his eyes turning to look at me, a faint, knowing spark in his Dark pupils. I do. Why? Grayson and Gerald are in the security room, I murmured. They want to play a movie for our guests. I think we should help them edit the ending. Matthias didn't ask how I knew. He simply pulled out his phone, his fingers, typing a quick encrypted command to Simon. Done, he said, putting his phone away. 10 minutes later, Gerald Morrison stepped onto the stage, holding a champagne glass, his face filled with a smug, self-righteous satisfaction as he tapped his microphone. Everyone, today is a joyous day for our family, Gerald said, his voice echoing through the silent hall. But as the leader of the Branch family, I have a responsibility to ensure our bloodline is clean. I'm afraid our young general, manager Matthias, has been deceived by a very clever, very greedy woman. The crowd gasped. Look at the screen, everyone, Gerald shouted, pointing to the massive LED wall behind him. Let's see the true face of our new Mrs. Morrison. The screen lit up, but instead of the messy party video from 3 years ago, a crisp, high-definition recording from the old mansion's security cameras played. On the screen, Juliet White was standing in the kitchen at 4 a.m., pulling a small paper packet from her sleeve and carefully pouring a red powder into the silver thermos of orchid root soup. Beside her, Gerald Morrison's personal assistant was handing her a stack of offshore bank drafts. Once the Smith girl miscarries, the Morrison shares will fall. Juliet's voice on the recording was loud and clear. Gerald said he'll give me 10% of the logistics firm once he takes over. Gerald's face went from a smug grin to the color of death in a single second. He dropped his champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the stage with a loud, ringing crack. What? What is this? He stammered, his hand shaking as he looked at the screen. This is a fake. This is a setup. The police are waiting outside, Uncle Gerald, Matthias said, standing up from his seat, his arm wrapping securely around my waist as he looked at the stage. The state lab has already confirmed the presence of toxic levels of safflower in the thermos, and the transaction logs for those bank drafts have been seized by the Economic Crime Division. Within 2 minutes, 4 uniformed officers entered the ballroom, their handcuffs clicking sharply as they secured Gerald and Juliet, who was dragged out of the side door screaming, her white dress wet with the spilled champagne. From the stage, the sun rose over the riverfront villa, casting a clean, gold light over the white roses in the garden. I lay in the king-size bed of the master bedroom, wrapped in a soft silk sheet, my head resting on Matthias's shoulder. The morning air was fresh, smelling of wet earth and pine needle, completely free of the toxic grease of the old city. No text floated before my eyes. The screen was clear, the empty space filled only with the soft gold light of the morning. Raven, Matthias whispered, his hand resting gently on my lower abdomen, his fingers warm and steady. Are you hungry? Yes, I smiled, turning to press a soft kiss to his chin. I want strawberries, and I want you to carry me to the kitchen. Matthias looked at me, a genuine, rare smile finally breaking through his cold, handsome face as he reached out to lift me into his arms. As you wish, my wife, he murmured. I leaned my head against his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart, completely safe, completely loved, and ready for the new life we were going to write together under a sky that was finally, beautifully clear.